Good afternoon, everybody. Just finished making some notes here. I wanted to introduce you to something, some thinking before I know that we're going to meet with Father Lipka. First, and I thought about some things that I thought maybe you might just find worthy. One of them is that as a Catholic, we're all Catholics, so as a Catholic, you cannot ever become un-Catholic. It's not possible. But we can reject what would be in Catholicism. So never forget that. You can never be un-Catholic. You can only reject it. And rejection causes a type of neurotic responses in us. So when you look around at people and you see that they've left the church and they have all kinds of problems, there's a connection. And the connection is not that they're not Catholic anymore. It's because they rejected it. And rejection makes us neurotic. I'm going to take us back to when we're infants. So follow me in this little road backwards. Infants think in relationship to their senses. So the primary sense is touch. This is in utero. I'm thinking, okay, so we're in utero. So we feel wetness because of the fluids in utero. As we grow, we're crowded. And so we retaliate against that. So now we can feel an annoyance. We don't address that. We don't know what that is. But we're annoyed because we're crowded. So we'll kick and we do things in utero to as a kind of a defense measure. Then when we're born, we want to be fed. But we don't think in phrases. We don't think, where's that mom, or where's that person who feeds me, or where's that person who makes me feel better? That's not what we think as infants. We think it's a spontaneous thing, and it's an imagery. All we know is we are hungry. We have this image, we need to be fed. And that mommy is needed, whoever that person might be, and we don't even have a phrase for that. We don't have a word for that. So we think of this as an image of being fed. She comes to us and she comes with her bottle or whatever, however, as she breastfeeds, whatever it is. So she feeds us, and that's the image that the infant can contain. It's an imagery. When this, by the time the child is 1 to 2 years old, we begin to learn that there's a sound, and the sound can make responses to us be done correctly. In other words, if we cry, someone's going to come to us and give us a bottle, or someone's going to come to us and, do you need lunch, or do you need dinner? If we're 2 years old, we're going to want more than a bottle, or if we're wet. So we learn that there's sounds that we can make that create correct responses. We learn that because we've been watching over that first 1 or 2 years, and we've been able to observe exactly what's happening around us. But we don't have any words for that. There's no sounds for that. By the time you start getting close to 2, you're beginning to have some sounds that you can do. Those sounds, of course, are words. Now you're beginning to establish some language. As you establish language, you don't have those words that you're establishing. You don't have to have an image for those words because it's automatic. The image translates automatically to this sound that you have seen responses for. So this is like speaking fluently. In fact, that's not like, it is. That's what you have. That's why we have a fluent language. This light goes like that. It's an arc. It goes like that. So we start off in this very primary kind of thinking, how we think in our getting sounds and getting what we want, doing what we want, and using these sounds to our advantage. But it all started with images, because we didn't know these sounds until we had the images first. We're told by researchers that most of us have all of our vocabulary by the time we're 25. There's some deviation to that, but that's what they find. How we learn will define that emphasis, whether we learn more words after we're 25 or not, or how quickly we will, or what we will. I mean, there's plenty of people who after 25 have learned a second or a third or fourth language. But that isn't usual. It depends on the way that you learn, whether you're ever going to be even interested in doing that. If you're a reader, if you're a person who learns by using words and taking them and putting that into your brain and then having them translated, if you're a person who learns like that, that kind of an emphasis does not use images so much. People who use images are more tactile, generally speaking. Tactile learners will usually bring with them images for word usage their entire lives. They still use words, but they use images more through their entire lives. People who are readers tend to not do that so much. It doesn't affect their learning. It just affects how they learn. It's a matter of processing information, because we all process information a little differently. Well, not all, but there's basically two different ways to process information, but that's a different subject. But how that works is there is a difference in how we're going to take that information and share it with one another. So if I know what kind of a person, I know how I learn. I learn it with images. I'm a very tactile learner, see, touch, feel, very much. I'm okay with books. It's not my primary teaching tool, though. I'm great with a book if it's got a lot of pictures. It sounds like a 2-year-old, but I prefer to have some kind of imagery. Because I do that, then it affects how I can learn other things. This process isn't really trainable. This is a genetic thing. This is God-given. I can't even say it's genetic in the sense that directly genetic, like we always think of gene pool. It might be genetic in the sense that grandparents, great-grandparents, back a couple of hundred years and all coming forward. That, in that sense, it may be related, but not directly. So we have this definition then in our emphasis of learning and how we will become thinkers and share that with one another. So because I'm the kind of learner that I am, the kind of thinker, how I process my information, and because I cannot be trained really to think in small steps, I need people who can think like that. I need people who are not primarily image thinkers. And I notice that the people who are my friends, even my husband, makes up for what is lacking in me, because I need them. So we need one another for that reason, because we don't learn the same. That means then, if we lose a spouse for whatever reason, we cannot replace them with someone else who thinks like us. It means we have to replace them with someone who thinks like the person we married in the first place. That's why people who end up divorced, what do? They go out and marry somebody else just like the person they just divorced. That's what they do. That's what we do, because we find someone to make up for what is lacking in us. And it's the same thing that we just married before us. This business of images, religion is a really great tool because it offers a window for images for us. And it doesn't matter then what the emphasis is in religion, because all it matters is who you are, because it draws us into the image of Christ no matter how you learn. It's going to draw you into that. If you learn by reading, it's going to draw you into that differently, but it was still going to draw you into that. If you're an image learner like me, it's going to draw me into it differently, but it's still going to draw me into that. Whether we're reading about it or picturing it like I would do, we're still entering ourselves into the mysteries of the life of Jesus Christ. On Mother's Day, Father Lipka, he's going to discuss mental prayer with us, and he's going to go on the YouTube and do this. I don't know if he's going to introduce to you by bringing through language and then to images. I don't really know if he's going to do it like that. I tend to use language to bring me to images. I don't even know how he learns, to be honest. So, because I don't know that, I don't know what he'll use, what tools he'll use for you. I know he'll use however it is that he learns, because that's what we do. He's not going to teach you some way that he doesn't use. He's going to teach you some way that he knows. When he does that, he's going to bring you two images either way. So the reason I'm giving this little discussion is I want you to be prepared for this concept of images. I want you to consider your own self, how you use images, if you do, or if you don't, get some practice. And the best practice in the world is by saying the rosary and doing it on the mysteries. There's no better way in the entire world than through the mysteries in the Catholic Church. And then it will bring you back all the way to the senses again. Because when we use the images and we consider ourselves with the life of Jesus Christ, it brings us back to how we feel about that. How do you feel inside about that? How do you feel about that experience of that? Now you're being brought all the way back to how you were when you were born. Here we have this big arc again. This is where you began, and this is where we're going to end. When we come from God and we return from Him, there's a sameness. The sameness is because of who we are. It's not because of how we do it. It's because of who we are. So have a great dinner. And I probably won't speak to you again until I have Father Lipka with us. God bless you all. You're very, very precious. Bye-bye.